wisdom,
prudentia,
justice,
justitia,
temperance,
temperantia,
courage.
fortitudo.
Applying ancient philosophy to modern life, this is the Sunday Stoic.
Welcome to the Sunday Stoic Podcast. This is Steve. If you're wondering why the audio quality is a little different than normal, it's because I'm using my phone on the porch. Why? Because I'm a working daddy with a busy life, and I'm sitting on my porch. I have not had a chance to record till Saturday night, and this thing's got to come out Sunday morning, and I'm on a deadline here. That's the price we sometimes pay for a weekly podcast in a situation like mine. But that's okay. This is a running late is a dispreferred indifferent. Perhaps my character would be better suited by doing a better job of scheduling time to podcast, but things happen. But I do want to talk to you a bit this week. Before I do, I want to thank Steven, one of my newest patrons, for helping support the podcast. And I want to congratulate Juan for winning the book, for submitting a picture of him reading his favorite Stoic text. So I will send you that, along with the stickers and magnet you're getting for being a patron. So if you want to be a patron, go to www.patreon.com/SundayStoic. For my patrons, you may have seen that I made a video version of this podcast already, and it's on the Facebook group for patrons. But when I went to edit the audio, it had a click in it. Probably something electrical, a recurring, very rapid pulse, like brrrr, and I could not really edit it out. So I thought, well, I'd rather have a porch cast this week than Steve on the porch instead of a very clicky podcast for everybody else. Once again, dispreferred indifference. So I want to actually talk this week about what I'm going to call, and this doesn't make me original, but what I want to call a necessary indifferent and unnecessary indifference. This is kind of an idea I know I've read in there's my dog barking. This is an idea that I know I have read in Epicurus, Epicureanism. Dexter, I'm podcasting. Can you be quiet? Thank you. And where they talk about the things that are necessary and natural versus unnatural and unnecessary. And so when we talk about things that are necessary and natural, so when I put it in Stoic terms, when we talk about things that are necessary indifference, these are things that we have to live. Like, you can't be virtuous without if you starve to death. How's that? And to be honest with you, I would steal, for example, to keep my son alive. So I would lie in some cases, right? There are cases when I'll lie when I think when I find it to be the better option. And are those virtuous things to do? I don't know. These are not things I want to do, but the ultimate goal of my life is benefited by them. So, for example, like I said, I'll steal an apple to keep my son alive, right? So I don't know. I'm not going to go down a crazy rabbit hole of philosophical discussion on when it's okay to do those things. I just think it's something worth thinking about, knowing that you're not a perfect sage, and sometimes you'll have to make a compromise or you'll have to pursue things. And I think pursuing food, shelter, and water are things that we will have to do. But what about the other things then? The unnecessary indifference. I'm not even mentioning the Stoic terminology of preferred and dispreferred, just things that we don't actually need to live. Things that don't meet basic human needs. How do we relate to those? And then you pile on more what we would call preferred indifference, and those are things like riches. So let's just hear a reading from Seneca to see what he has to say about it. So this will sound a little different than a normal show, once again, recording on my phone. But the wisdom is the wisdom no matter how we hear it, right? So this is from the Moral Letters to Lucilius by Seneca on true and false riches. What then do I encourage you to do? nothing new. We are not trying to find cures for new evils, but this first of all, namely, to see clearly for yourself what is necessary and what is superfluous. What is necessary will meet you everywhere. What is superfluous has always to be hunted out, and with great endeavor. But there is no reason why you should flatter yourself over much if you despise gilded couches and jeweled furniture. For what virtue lies in despising useless things? The time to admire your own conduct is when you have come to despise the necessities. You are doing no great thing if you can live without royal pomp. If you feel no craving for boars which weigh 1,000 pounds, or for flamingo tongues, or for the other absurdities of a luxury that already wearies of game cooked whole, and chooses different bits from separate animals, I shall admire you only when you have learned to scorn even the common sort of bread, when you have made yourself believe that grass grows for the needs of men as well as of cattle, when you have found out that food from the treetop can fill the belly into which we cram things of value as if we could keep what has been received. We should satisfy our stomachs without being over nice. How does it matter what the stomach receives, since it must lose what it has received? And I want to add in a favorite line from this reading at the very end of this reading here. Has a business filled up this whole day? I'm sorry, let me review that. Has a business filled up this whole life of ours, which could not fill up a whole day? Okay, so Seneca here is saying, oh, whoop-de-doo, so you're a minimalist. Good for you. You've decided that you don't need a gilded couch. You don't need a Blu-ray player. You don't need the newest smartphone. You don't need to have gizmos and gadgets everywhere. So what? Whoop-de-doo. You've given up the superfluous, the things that, yeah, they're hard to find. But can you give up the things that are easy to find that we need to stay alive? And I'm not saying he's saying give up the necessary indifference, but can you despise them? Meaning, can you look food square in the eye and say, I don't need you to be a good person? Ooh, that's a hard one, isn't it? Once again, he's not saying don't eat, but he's saying, can you look at the things that you work for that you need to survive and say, it's nice to have a drink of water. It's nice to have a roof on my head, but I don't need these things to live. Well, let me rephrase that. I don't need these things to live a good life. It might be a short life, but I don't need them to be good. So you've learned to scorn even the common sort of bread. But he says, well, let's say, okay, but when you start to believe that grass grows for you as well as for cows, I guess he's suggesting we eat grass there. I don't think you'll live long. We don't have the right digestive tract to digest that. But he says when you found out that food from the treetop can fill the belly, so when you realize that fruit from a fruit tree, like an apple tree, can fill you up, and it will get the job done, then you're on your way to understanding this. When you don't need to do something complicated to eat, when you don't have to go through a big complicated cooking ritual, making sauces and all those sorts of things, when you realize you don't even need basic bread, when you could walk outside if you live in the right area and eat whatever you could forage, and you see that nature can provide. He says, why are you putting things in your stomachs that take so much time and effort when you know it's just going to pass right out the other side? Can we despise the things that we feel are necessary? And how could we simplify even further from where we are? And I don't think Seneca ever actually did that. He was a rich dude, I bet. But I think every now and again, he intentionally made himself live somewhat this way to remind himself of true virtue. And the last statement there that I just really liked, has a business filled up this whole life of ours which could not fill up a whole day? That could be a whole episode on that quote, I think. It can tie into preferred and dispreferred indifference or whatever, but how many times do you look at your phone a day or a television, right? How the stuff that if you sat down with a blank sheet of paper and planned a day, you wouldn't once write down look at phone, spend time on phone, spend time on TV, unless there's a certain program or movie you really want to see. That's probably not going to be in your plan. But then look at how you spent the last year, the last decade, and you realize on your deathbed that you spent a lot of your life doing superfluous nonsense. Has a business filled up this whole life which should not have been able to fill up an entire day? You filled your life with nonsense that if you had been planning, you would not have even filled a whole day with. You would not have wasted a day on this, but now you've wasted a life on this, on the pursuit of superfluous nonsense. So if we can prioritize and figure out what is necessary, what are the necessary indifference? Okay, I need food and water, I need to keep my kid alive, I need some basic clothing. Everything else is superfluous. Now, you might want to seek it out. I'm not saying don't. But be careful not to waste your life on stupid nonsense. And I have wasted a lot of life on stupid nonsense. Make a list. What is the dumb stuff that you've wasted time on that you don't need to? The worry. Ruminations about work, eating your evening away. Ruminations about something you said at a party to somebody, and now you feel bad about your social interactions when they probably have forgotten about it, and it ruminates away. Worrying about the future, the evils that have not even come to pass, that worry your life away. These are things that shouldn't even fill up a day, but can eat away an entire life. Focus on the absolute vitals, then layer on the things you'd prefer to have, and let's try to let some of the rest go. All right, I hope this podcast sounds good enough to listen to, and I hope it makes a little sense. Patrons, you'll probably get a whole different lecture here than the one I gave before. But as you can tell from my ums and uhs, I often wing these things as I think and talk. And so there you go. Anyway, thank you so much for the kind words, and I'm surprised when someone says that you get something out of the rants of me on my porch, and I am glad that it helps. And thank you, and carpe diem, everybody. Seize the day, seize your life. Let's not waste it. Carpe diem.
Thank you for listening to the Sunday Stoic. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe, rate, and review the Sunday Stoic on iTunes. Become a member of the Sunday Stoic team, earn rewards, and be an integral part of the show by becoming a patron at www.patreon.com/SundayStoic. Contact the show by emailing sundaystoic@gmail.com or by leaving a voicemail at 501-503-3132. To find out more, visit www.sundaystoicpodcast.com. And as Steve always says, carpe diem.